Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Foodservice Revolution, How Changes in Consumer Behaviors Are Accelerating Industry Innovation, presented by Restaurant Business, Technomic, and Nestlé Professional. I'm Pat Kobe, Senior Editor at Restaurant Business, and I'll be your moderator for today's event. Throughout our presentation, we encourage you to interact with our speakers by clicking the Q&A header in the chat box on your screen. We will answer questions live at the end of the presentation. We are also recording today's session and will email you as soon as the recording is available. If you'd like to share any of the information on Twitter, use the hashtag Foodservice2021. If you're experiencing any technical issues, please use the help button at the top right of your screen. Our speakers today are Catherine Fenner, Principal at Technomic, Martin Lines, Vice President of Beverage Marketing, and Kevin Wassler, Corporate Executive Chef at Nestlé Professional. I'll now turn it over to Catherine, who will be kicking off today's presentation. Take it away, Catherine.
Thank you, Pat. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. As Pat mentioned, we're going to be talking today about how changes in the consumer have impacted our industry. And really, it's been more than a year now, but consumers' behaviors continue to evolve. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So first, we want to understand from your perspective, what is your current working situation? Are you working at home? Are you working on site or at an office? Or are you doing something in between where maybe you're working on site sometimes and at the office sometimes, sometimes working from home? So let us know, what are you currently doing? We'll give everybody just a minute to answer the poll here that popped up on your screen. Interesting. So we see an awful lot of people still, it looks like, working from home or having a hybrid arrangement where they're sometimes at home and sometimes working on site or at the office. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that now, but I wanted to, get your perspectives on that, because you can see that, you're not that different from everyone else we're talking to in the industry. Now, obviously, it depends on the type of industry that you work in and whether or not you work, in the type of arrangement where you're considered a, someone who needs to be on site. So what we see in our recent survey, this was done at the end of 2020, and we asked consumers whether or not they were working from home. And this is, I believe, 1,500 consumers that we talked to. And we found that 25% were still working from home due to COVID. So not quite as high as we saw in our sample, but this sample is a very broad sample who could include people who are first responders and people who are considered necessary on site. At the highest point among the people in our sample, we saw 40% were working from home. Some of them started to return. Interestingly, though, we asked that 25%, whether or not they expected they'd be returning to the office, and 16% said they didn't expect to ever return to the office in the same way that they had prior to the pandemic. So they expect that they'll either be working from home long-term or that they'll have some sort of long-term or permanent hybrid relationship. The reason this is important then is that it disrupts the patterns that have become part of our industry, right? People have for decades stopped on their way to the office for their coffee or their breakfast, or they're eating lunch somewhere near their place of work. Well, with fewer people working in the office, obviously those things are being disrupted. So this is the pattern that we have seen emerge. Before the pandemic, you saw 61% of consumers were eating on site in a restaurant. That has now just been cut in half to about 31% saying they're either eating on site or in a restaurant. Whereas we see an uptick, a small uptick in drive-through, because that was always there and always convenient, but we see the biggest jump in pickup and delivery. Now, some of that is enabled by restaurants starting their own deliveries, some of it's third-party delivery companies, but where we see the biggest jump is in that pickup, with operators offering low-touch convenience service. But we expect that this pattern is going to continue, and we may see people starting, there's certainly pent-up demand, we'll see them wanting to eat on site more often, but that interest in off-premise is going to remain. We see it's not waning for a number of reasons. So first, prior to the pandemic, we had a variety of different roles in our lives, but we were usually able to compartmentalize them, and in some cases, someone else was helping us with those roles. But during the pandemic, we've become all of these things at once. Our lives have become very departmentalized. We're employee at the same time as we're parent and spouse and teaching and do-it-yourselfer because we can't have people inside the house. We may be cooking more than we had previously. So really, people are feeling more stressed and more pressured than ever. And so 59% of consumers tell us they are looking to simplify their life. And over half of consumers also say that they are turning to restaurants. You know, we did a survey of 27,000 consumers in our consumer business metrics program. And what we found was that a jump in 5 points between pre-pandemic and today in the number of people who said that they have time to really sit and enjoy a meal. And they're looking to food service to help. There was a 3-point jump in the number of people who said, I depend on food service and not cooking at home to help me with that. So food service is taking on a bigger role for consumers who are just looking to simplify. And they are responding to the way that restaurants have simplified, whether that's easier online ordering and payment methods, easy curbside pickup, or simplified menus. But they still crave experiences and they still crave connection, whether it be with family or friends or co-workers, they're still looking for those kinds of connection points. But the simplicity that they're seeing and the safety needs to be there in order to enable those experiences that matter for consumers. So those things will continue to be important. And when we talk about connections, just one fun fact here, let's not forget about people's fur babies. So we know a lot of people have gone out and gotten pets during the pandemic. We recently learned that 4 in 10 consumers, ages 18 to 34, so those are those consumers in the sweet spot, the consumers who tend to be most reliant and spend the most at food service, 39% of them have ordered something for a pet when they have visited a drive-thru. And what's really interesting about that is 58% of them say it's a planned purchase. What does that tell you? It tells you if you have something on your menu for someone's pet, as an example, I'll throw out Starbucks. They have a puppuccino drink for pets. If you have something dedicated for pets or pet-friendly on your menu, people will consider you in their consideration set when they're out and about. Okay. So that brings us, I want to bring in our panelists again today. So Kevin and Martin are going to join me here. And I want to ask them, with people changing lunch and breakfast patterns, what advice do you have for operators to help them drive traffic? So Martin, we'll start with you.
Yeah, hi, Catherine, and thank you for joining everybody. I think what we've seen during the pandemic is, we've seen a change around how people are, eating and drinking during that day, because as your figures showed, most people are still working from home. So I think we've got to find areas that allow people not just to shake up their routine, but allows them to treat themselves. The mid-morning coffee break is now more than likely sat at a desk, but there's no reason why the employee consumer can't actually personalize their drinks in their home environment. But also going to these customers, these channels where there are new, exciting, complex, different flavors, look at different snack options, look at different pricing levels. Often, beverage can be seen as a snack or a dessert, not just as a pure beverage. So I think it's about being flexible. It's about adapting and looking at the day part in a different way to reflect the fact that many of these employee consumers, have a different working pattern now that they're working from home.
Excellent. I totally agree, Martin. Thank you. Chef Kevin, I'm going to bring you in as well. If you could speak to us around, how people can adapt their menu.
Yeah, so a lot of what we have seen over the past is people that have had their regular menus on the every day, and just how it's changed. And you mentioned recently about just readapting to what's going on. And I think what we had a lot of people look at was reevaluating their menus, and a lot of what happened during the pandemic, the issues that they had with a regular size menu going down to a smaller size menu, that's all changed. I've talked to customers who have said they had breakfast was in the morning and lunch was during the middle of the day and dinner, and breakfast has changed and gone into the morning and changed over into dinner time. So people that have cooked at home have made those changes as well too. I think there's also been different versions of people cooking at home, and they've changed around some of the traditional classics that maybe they have made in the past, and change them up to be different. So let's say burgers and chicken or pasta, even pizza and tacos. I know online a lot of virtual cooking shows and demonstrations went around different versions of tacos that people wanted to try. And the most recent I saw was that people that have been eating at home, what they miss most about restaurants is the specific flavors that they'll get in a restaurant. So it's tough to recreate, let's say, Italian or Asian or Mexican food at home. They tend to want to have that again. You go out, I do it myself. You go out shopping for food and you need to buy 15, 20 different things to create some of these meals and make them authentic. I think people are starting to crave that. They want to get back to their favorites, that kind of comfort food that they've been craving for the past year as well too. So the comfort and craveability of the food that they've wanted to get back to.
Great, thank you. Yeah, some definite themes I think you're going to see play out as we continue talking here today. That importance of those flavors and experiences that are tougher for a consumer to develop at home. Okay, well, with that, let's take a look a little bit at how the marketplace is responding. What are some operators doing that is working really well to help make those connections and shake things up when people have settled into this new routine? And so first, sorry about that, my going a little too fast there. So first, one of the main things that we've seen operators do is simplify. And as we mentioned, consumers are looking for simple right now. So many other things have gotten so complicated that they're looking to simplify wherever they can. And the main areas that operators have simplified in are first, clean, open environments. And obviously, to some extent, that's been necessity. We need to space people out. So it meant a lot less clutter and a lot more space for people to move within the operation itself. 66% of operators told us that they have actually slimmed down their menu. And as Chef Kevin mentioned, people are really responding to this. In fact, about 4 in 10 consumers told us prior to the pandemic, they found menus to be too much. They found it to be confusing, and they actually like the way in which menus have simplified, and it makes the entire experience more enjoyable and more straightforward. So this is something that while they want to make sure their favorites stay on the menu and they still want to make sure there's some variety available, they have embraced the idea of these simpler, smaller menus. And so you can see 56% of consumers said they would like that to continue. And then ordering and payment technology, obviously, also a necessity. We've seen a lot of folks invest in cashless payments or pay ahead, order ahead, things like that, It's not going to go away, right? Once an operator has invested in that, it's here to stay. Well, consumers love it. Half of consumers say they want to make sure that those systems are still in place post-pandemic. They love that these apps often, simplify it and that they don't want to have to carry cash or a wallet. They love that it sometimes remembers their order and makes simple, quick, easy reorder possible. So in general, consumers have loved the way that operators have simplified. So continue to look for opportunities to do that within your operation. If you haven't slimmed down your menu yet, this is your opportunity to do so. If you haven't decluttered your environment yet, this is an opportunity to do so. Okay, next, let's talk about even though menus are smaller, they need to be very focused on the things that you do best. And I mentioned, while consumers are okay with a smaller menu, they still want variety and they still want experiences. So how can you add that variety in a way that you're pleasing as many people as possible without adding complexity either for the consumer or for back of house? And some of the main ways we've seen this happen, no surprise to you, I'm sure, is meal kits. But the most successful meal kits have really taken on what supermarkets were doing well. And, initially consumers really did look to the supermarket for these meal kits. But even better if it already comes prepared or, just ready to assemble so that everybody in the household can assemble it the way they like with the flavors and the choices they like. Multiple choices of meats, multiple choices of tacos, seasonings, as you see here in the picture. So this is a great way to make sure that you're simplifying their lives, but also still allowing for customization and for personalization and variety for those who might want their flavors slightly differently. We also see meal kits, the ones where the preparation actually happens. That's becoming more common as well. But again, the key there is making sure that it is simple. Now, another thing that we've seen work really well for operators are virtual brands. So you talk about, how do I make connections with consumers? How do I stay unique and different at a time when that's what consumers are looking for? They're looking for something not easily to replicate at home. And one thing that we've seen a lot of operators do is embrace these ghost brands. So ghost brands can be one of several things, right? It could be like Chili's with their Just Wings concept. So they're using Chili's kitchens, but for products that they're known for, and are known to travel well. So here's a great way for us to get that Chili's experience to consumers without it being the full Chili's menu, right? And so they're using their kitchens as ghost brands in that way. That brand, Just Wings only exists online. Then you have the celebrity ones that have popped up. And so here's one that exists or has recently come out in fall of 2020, Tiger Bites. This brand is actually in 30 different markets. And in these markets, the operators can take advantage of the promotion and the branding that's already happening here with a celebrity that is popular with a very appealing demographic of those 18 to 34-year-olds. And they can do it in a very simple way, very slimmed down menu. And all the promotion is already built into you for you and the brand and the consumer demand. Okay, so with that, now I want to just ask again our experts a few questions around how can you boost, first we'll talk about the menu and then we'll talk about beverage. I'm going to start with Chef Kevin. How can you boost menu sales while also simplifying the menu? Can you share some best practices or ideas with our audience?
Sure. I think the innovation that people need to realize, and I think a lot started doing this on the onset of COVID and thereafter, is take another look at your menu and simplify the ingredients that you have on there, first of all. Try to find different ways to take what you do have and maybe go towards the better for you route. A lot during COVID, when people had a lot of time, they were starting to work out, go to the gym, exercise. So finding some better ideas to kind of revamp the menu. Take a look at some of the, the inspiration that's actually out there. People started cooking breads. People started making all sorts of odd things while they were at home. I was one of them. I tried multiple times to make focaccia bread and tried different versions of it, as I mentioned before, with different ingredients, and to kind of consolidate what you do have on your menu and to find different ways to do it. The takeout business has taken off crazy. It's still going crazy. People still don't want to go inside of a place, but will go to a drive-through and grab some product. One of the things that you did mention about ghost kitchens, I found that the articles that have come out on that lately are they're crazy. Just what people are doing. There's certain restaurants that you could never find a specific product, and now you can actually get online and only do it virtually. Virtual kitchen, you don't know where it's coming from, but it could be coming from the back of restaurant A, B, or C. It could be a national brand, and they're rolling out new ideas and things. And you know what? If it sticks, it sticks. They're using ingredients that are already on their menu, so they're cross-utilizing those. And they're really not, they're not going too crazy and bringing in too many products, but they're recreating with what they have inside. And I think that those virtual kitchens, it's just like a pop-up. It's like a little pop-up restaurant. You can change it anytime you want. So again, they're utilizing a lot of what they already have inside that they can recreate and do some new ideas with.
That's fantastic. A great way to get variety on your menu as well.
Definitely.
Martin, from a beverage perspective, can you share some ideas?
Yeah, and I think, building off what Chef has just said, I would say, think about how to pair your beverages with the food that you're offering. I think, as Chef said, complexity is a problem for many operations. Consumers want everything, but I think what the pandemic has shown is a focus on the core. It's the 80-20 rule. There's 80% of your business is going to come probably from 20% of your menu items. The same would apply to beverages. So think about how to, create, if you've got seasonal specials on the menu, what are the seasonal beverages that are going to work with those seasonal food pairings? Create some, inspiration around that. I'm sure that a lot of people listening who are in the restaurant business will have lost a lot of alcohol sales during this time, as consumers haven't been buying alcoholic beverages in the restaurant. So how do you supplement that? By providing, alcoholic cocktails to go. They often have the ingredients, but they don't have the recipes or the ideas. So give the consumer a way to help sort of complete that menu when they get home.
Fantastic.
That's a good point that Martin makes about the beverages and the kits. Think of all the meal kits that you can buy in a store now, and you can create. So you buy a package of a certain item, and then you go buy your protein, and then boom, you come home, and you're the highlight of the night. But you've also got the beverage end of it. So think about this: if you stop by a restaurant, they give you everything. No one wants to come up with the ideas; they just want the finished product. If you're given the mint or the basil or the strawberries, and then maybe you're providing your own liquor at home, but they're giving you everything else, someone will pick that up in a second and say, this is what we're doing tonight. And if you have enough people coming over, everybody brings a specific cocktail, something like that. If you're going to do something that's non-alcoholic, it's going to be a variety of fresh fruits, and you're going to do sweet or savory on those beverages. And just, again, you're going to stand there and create. And you know what, in the day and age of having your cameras out, people are going to try these out and start to create the next trend that's out there. It's going to be someone in their house doing it on a Saturday night just for fun.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. Thanks, both. Okay. So next I'm going to talk about, some more ideas about what's working and what's not. And so one of the concerns when you start talking about all of this curbside pickup and virtual brands and delivery is, does connection suffer? Do we have that same connection with consumers that we had prior to the pandemic? And so Technomic did some research around this in fall of 2020, and we found some really encouraging results. So we asked whether or not the pandemic has had a net positive or a net negative effect on consumers' ability to connect with various people that are important in their lives. And so first, let's take a look at millennials and Gen Xers. And so millennials told us that actually the pandemic has had a net positive impact on their ability to connect. And isn't that interesting? We tend to all say, oh, everybody's isolated. And we are to an extent, but people have been so innovative in the ways that they've made connections with others. So for millennials, it's had a net positive impact on their the way that they can connect with their immediate household members. They've slowed down and spent more time with their family, their kids, their parents, their children. For Gen Xers, same thing. Neighbors, parents, friends, children, and the others in their household, they say, I'm actually closer to these people or feel like I've had a better chance to connect than I did prior to the pandemic. And food service has played a very important role in that. We'll talk about that in a moment. Now, where we see a little bit of struggle is with Generation Z and Boomers. So we just talked about Millennial and Gen X. Those are digital savvy groups who are very self-reliant. We get to Gen Z, and these folks are obviously very digitally savvy as well, but they really do value that ability to make real connections to the world around them and society around them. And they have a harder time doing that digitally or feeling that it's a real connection. And so they like better ways to connect with their friends, their colleagues, their social groups. And baby boomers also just maybe not as digitally savvy, say they've struggled to connect with neighbors, friends, and kids. But whether we're talking about the group that's having a positive impact or a negative impact, there are ways that food service can help with these connections. So let's take a look at that. And in fact, we asked consumers over the age of 18 whether or not restaurants or other food service venues played a significant role in connecting them with these people that are important to them. And you can see with millennials and Gen X that they said absolutely it does. In fact, about 6 in 10 said that restaurants have played an important role in creating those connections. And so they're doing it with meal kits. They're cooking together. They're spending time enjoying those takeout and curbside meals as a family. It's really allowing them to slow down and enjoy each other's company. And that's the role that food service plays right now. How can you enable the convenience and the safety of these experiences? Gen Z and baby boomers also say, yes, there's a role for food service here. But apparently we haven't been doing as good a job for these demographic groups as we have for millennials and Gen Xers. So how can we do better to help make connections for Gen Z and baby boomers? Let's take a look. So first, yep, we're still talking virtual here. I believe it was Chef Kevin who mentioned that, yes, there's pent-up demand and people are so anxious to enjoy food service experiences again. Doesn't mean they're all comfortable being on site. Now, we do know that they're feeling more hopeful about that. I think it's roughly 6 in 10 consumers said they're optimistic that by the end of 2021, they'll be able to enjoy in person again. But we've already shown you that even once we can go out in person again, there are certain elements from the pandemic that we expect to stick around, more curbside, more takeout, et cetera. And so making connections virtually is important now, especially for those groups that don't feel connected, but it will continue to have a role going forward. So let's look at an example of how MealKits can help you do that. Girl and the Goat in Chicago, part of the Boca Restaurant Group, they have developed chef-curated make-at-home kits. They feature signature ingredients. So you heard both Martin and Chef Kevin earlier talk about the importance of having flavors that are very different than they can create at home. Those are the experiences they're craving and the things that they're missing from the food service experience. The convenience is absolutely still there. We've made that happen through all the innovation. But how can we bring back those special flavors and help them enjoy those as well? So Girl and the Goat has done that by making sure that their signature flavors, you can see their bottle of sauce there in the image, is part of the kit. They also have ingredients that they're very well known for. Entrees they're very well known for. This particular kit was for tacos at home, so something approachable for all members of the family, but with those signature flavors that you can't easily replicate at home and that feel special to Girl and the Goat. Families can cook along then, as if you get kits from one house and another house, extended families or extended groups of friends or coworkers can cook together virtually. They could even do live cook-along sessions with the chef in some cases. They host some cook-along sessions. So what a fun activity and experience and way to connect with other folks. They also provide that option to add on a well-paired bottle of wine or a non-alcoholic alternative, including some specialty cocktails that the restaurant is known for and can be replicated with certain ingredients and flavors at home. So they've provided everything in these specially curated boxes, even videos or live tutorials to help make it happen. Okay, some more ways that you can help these groups connect, especially Generation Z, which we know is among the most reliant on food service, but not necessarily feeling as connected right now. Things that will resonate, things that will get their attention, and things that will help them feel more connected include comfort foods and craveability. We know all consumers right now are enjoying comfort foods. The more comfy, the better. They're starting to look for health halo foods and functionality, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But comfort still rules the day as everybody goes through these uncertain times. And craveability has always been an important part of limited time offers, and the ones that are most likely to drive traffic, as well as the most likely to be appealing and enjoyed and memorable, and create loyalty to your brand. So what's craveable? Well, when we looked at what is craveable on an overall basis, and especially what's craveable among Gen Z, good news is a lot of the stuff is craveable across generations. Generation Z is more likely to look for slightly unique flavors. So let's look at some examples here. We've got plant-based street foods. That's what those tacos are. Those are plant-based tacos. And we found that 59% of consumers, especially Generation Z, but 59% on an overall basis, said that those are highly craveable and something that they would like to purchase. Similarly, we see simple breakfast foods. They're portable, they travel well, it's going to taste the same whether I eat it at the restaurant or take it home. Those are things that are highly appealing and highly craveable, especially to Gen Z. And again, we had about 6 in 10 consumers tell us that yes, that would absolutely be something I would be interested in purchasing. Some other things that would resonate specifically with Gen Z is waste reduction. So Gen Z, and I'm going to talk about this more in a moment, they are more likely to say, let's put our money where our beliefs are. So they're looking for items that are good for the planet, and waste reduction or talking about your efforts in that area are an area that are important to them. They're also looking at things that feel real and not artificial, partially because they're believed to be better for the environment, and partially because they're believed to taste better while making me feel better about my choices. It's a health benefit that also tastes great. So you see there in the example of a lemonade cocktail made with real fruit. And then I mentioned functionality. So they're starting to look for ingredients that are not only real and are likely to taste better because they're real and healthy, but they might actually provide some sort of boost in my diet. And I'm going to talk about that more in a moment as well. But most important of all, and it's come up a couple of times today, is that idea that you need to make sure that these items are not easily replicated at home, whether it be signature flavors or just special combinations. It's something that someone is not likely to have in their cabinet and whip up on their own, so they're going to crave it from a food service experience. Because while some folks enjoyed making banana bread or whatever else in their kitchens, most people report that they've gotten tired of cooking at home, and so they are looking for something new and different. All right, so I talked briefly there about functionality. We're going to talk about it a little bit more now, but I want to do a poll here. I want to get a sense of, have your customers' interest in immunity boosting ingredients changed as a result of the pandemic? So have you seen that they're more interested, they're less interested, no change, or you just don't know? You haven't really heard, you're not sure if they're more or less interested. Let's just give everybody a moment to answer. Okay. Interesting. So it looks like most people don't know, and that's not a surprise. It's not necessarily, we've all been talking about comfort foods for so long that we don't necessarily know what might be next on the minds of consumers. But for those of you who didn't say I don't know, the next biggest answer was they are more interested. And so let's see here if that is in fact the case. And our research shows that yes, indeed, that is the case. So we looked at our consumer brand metrics data, and again, this is 27,000 consumers that are tested on a repeatable, ongoing basis, so we can track how their attitudes and behaviors change over time. And 46% prior to the pandemic said, "Yep, I'm pretty health conscious." Well, we saw a 3-point jump in that 1 year later after the pandemic started. And you may say 3 points, that's not that much. When you're talking to 27,000 people, a 3-point jump is actually pretty significant. When we look across all of the metrics that we track, we don't typically see jumps that large from one year to another. So consumers are increasingly health conscious, and they tell us that they're more likely to be looking for immunity boosting things than they were a year ago. And, you know, it's not a surprise. Everybody's spent the entire year thinking about a pandemic. So what can help me feel better, partially, and that's that comfort food with a health halo and real ingredients, but also what, as a next step, could actually maybe make me actually healthier, ingredients that are functional. So what we see when we look in our menu tool is that immunity boosting ingredients are actually exploding on menus right now. So mentions of oat milk, which is believed to have immunity benefits, are up 43% versus a year ago. Dragon fruit is up 36%. Spirulina, which is an algae, is up 25%. Pomegranate, lavender, both up nearly 10%. So ingredients that are believed to have some variety of health benefit, either immunity boosting or relaxation or anti-inflammatory or inflammatory, are things that are all up in interest among consumers right now, as we are just thinking about our health more on a daily basis than we did a year ago, thanks to the pandemic. So here's a great example from Jamba on the page. This is their vanilla blue sky bowl, and this particular bowl has bananas, pineapples, almond milk, coconut milk, and blue spirulina, which is that algae ingredient, which is believed to have immunity boosting benefits. And it also has strawberries, blueberries. So we're talking about antioxidants, which are also supposed to have a very positive impact on your health and your immunity system. So consumers do want to feel good right now and feel like they're doing the right things for themselves. But I should mention, as always, they want it to taste good. In most of the consumer research that we've done over the last few years, it's come across that while they want those health benefits or better for you items, they won't sacrifice taste for it. So that's where your fruit flavors and things like that really can help to ensure that it's going to be tasty and better for them, so they can truly enjoy it and find it craveable. All right, the next thing that we want to talk about is telling stories about your food. So I know we talked a lot about this just prior to the pandemic. This was a consumer trend that was coming on. Well, it kind of hit pause during the pandemic, but it's coming back, especially Gen Z. So when you talk about how do I connect to Gen Z and millennials, you're going to want to tell stories that matter. So we did some research because we wanted to understand what types of stories matter right now. So when I'm talking about the good things, either that are present in my operation or the good things that are on my menu, what should I be focusing on? Right now, in the very immediate situation, people want to hear about people stories. Whether that be they want to know that you support equal rights, they want to know that you're treating your employees well, you're paying them a living wage, they want to know you're somehow involved in the community and doing things that'll benefit the we. And that's something that Generation Z sometimes is called Generation We, because they want to know that what you're doing is benefiting the community around them, the people that they know. And that's how they make connections with brands. Then after that, we'll be talking about sustainability. So products that matter to them are things that are clean label, as I mentioned, no artificials. And they assume that that means it's going to taste better and be better for them, be better for the environment. They also, of course, want to make sure it's safe, and if it can be locally produced, even better, because that impacts the people in their community. And then after product, then they start thinking really big picture, planet. What's your carbon footprint? You know, how are you helping to positively slow climate change? Sorry, there we go. And why are we saying people first? Well, interestingly, we've always thought about that as being a Generation Z thing, but something that occurred during the pandemic, we saw a lot of protests and causes be brought to the forefront that mattered to people. And the more we were talking about it as a society, the more important or more linked it got to people's purchasing decisions. And so you see the dark yellow line here shows younger consumers, 18 to 34-year-olds, who were already there. They've been leading the charge for socially responsible purchasing for a while, with 66%, 4 points higher than pre-pandemic, 66% saying it is important to me to know that this restaurant is socially responsible. So I want them to have the same values I do. What really changed, though, during the pandemic is we saw a real big uptick in the number of older consumers who said the same. So 35 and older are catching up to younger consumers when thinking about social responsibility when choosing where to dine. Okay, and then I mentioned after people stories. So after talking about the great things you're doing for your community or your employees and how you're keeping them safe, then you can talk about your menu. Talk about your menu and your operation in general and all the things that you're doing for the planet, which impacts and benefits all of us, right? So let's take a look at an example. Panera Bread has recently started promoting their cool food meals. And so they put an icon on menus for items that support the people and the planet. So they are saying that these are items that have a positive impact on the climate. They are produced in such a way that they produce fewer greenhouse gases. And so the World Resource Institute has put out maximum recommended daily carbon footprint for a person's diet, and they make sure that their menu items hit just a portion of those daily recommended, so that you can have breakfast, lunch, and dinner there and have cool food meals and stay within the recommended daily allowance. And that recommended daily allowance is 38% lower than the typical person's diet today. So Panera is trying to show them, by making some simple changes on our menu, we're going to help you to reduce your daily intake by 38%. Okay, so that brings us once again to our experts. I'd like to bring Chef Kevin and Martin back, and I want to ask them, you know, operators understandably say sustainability is tough right now because we're doing a lot more off-premise, which means more packaging. So how can operators offset, or what are some best practices they can think about to offset the impact on the environment of this extra packaging? So Chef Kevin, I'll start with you.
Thanks, Catherine. You know, thinking about this question and not being in the business of packaging food so much anymore, but I do buy some now for work to bring, and I see what customers use, and you touch the stuff and you feel it, and you try to think, is this the best I can be using? There's so many outlets out there for customers to use, and the unfortunate part is, prior to this, operators really didn't think too much about their to-go business, and now overnight it changed, and they really need to think about not only the packaging, but the food that's on their menu and what travels best. They've done that part, but the packaging part hasn't seemed to change much. Fortunately, in the city of Chicago, what I see is they've did a huge change there with earth-friendly packaging. So they were almost 2-3 years ahead of the game. And I think the best advice you can, I guess, give to a customer that's utilizing a lot of to-go is to work with their main distributors, their non-food suppliers, even their food suppliers. They can offer packages that would work best for you. There's obviously costs involved with them. Some of the ones that I've seen lately, you look at them and you're amazed that this is great, this packaging is terrific, and they're spending the money on it. And that kind of in your mindset, it makes you think that, you know what, if they're spending good money on their to-go packaging, their food's got to be fantastic. They're not going to stop and just put in foam packaging with a great meal. So if their packaging is good, their food quality is good, they're also thinking about the environment. They probably got a great story to tell overall about their restaurant, their establishment. So I think you gotta look for the advice out there. Get someone to do the consult for you. It's usually going to be someone that's supplying you with the product. They'd be happy to come in and look over what you're using and say, you know what, this is going to be better for you and for the environment and for your customers. Most people, would they not come back because you're using a foam container? I don't know. If that sandwich is good, they're going to come back, but you can probably do better. You can probably find something out there that's better.
Great. Thank you. Martin, can you share some ideas as well?
Yeah, I think Chef made a very good point there. Is, you know, from our perspective as, you know, as food and beverage manufacturers, we're focusing very much on how are we improving our packaging elements to our customers and our operator partners, as opposed to how that's then being passed on to the consumer. So I think Chef's suggestion of talking to the experts in the, let's say, the to-go packaging, that's where the insights are going to come from, and the actions. I think from an individual operator perspective and from a customer perspective, sustainability is not just about packaging. You know, there's a number of different components. It's obviously the sourcing of those ingredients. It's how are you reusing and repurposing product waste that would normally not be used. So, I mean, again, from a chef perspective, there's lots of other ways of using those parts of the, you know, whether it's the meat or the vegetables that would normally be thrown away. Think about that. And I guess make it, you know, people like stories. People like to talk about the story behind it. And the more you can personalize your own individual sustainability story, leveraging the various components, whether it's the manufacturer's element, it's the recycling element, the packaging element, make it about you as a customer, make it about you and your interaction with your own consumers and your own community. That will bring a lot more value to your customers, or to our customers' customers, as part of that strategy. There's no one solution to get there. We're going to have to rely on each part to do their bit, and certainly Nestlé is very committed to that in all areas of whether it's been water or waste or recyclability and landfill and energy. That's where we're trying to focus our energies.
That's great. Yeah, I love that idea of showing the consumer how that purchasing decision is doing something good for the environment, for the community, etc. That's great. Okay, well, with that brings us to kind of our wrap-up section here. So, you know, we talked a lot today about how you have to shift to meet the changing needs of consumers, and whether that be, you know, making sure you have that on-demand convenience, the value and variety and unique flavor combinations, or unique or extreme novelty. The idea is that those are the things that are going to drive them to your operation, and those are the things that are going to make it simple and easy to continue to make food service part of their lives. Some other things that you can think about as you're innovating is not just, does it travel well? Because I know you've been thinking about that for a while, but does it travel well? Is it easy for people to enjoy it with others? And does it somehow make their life better? So can it help make them not only feel better because it's craveable, not only enjoy an experience that matters because it's unique flavors, but can it also have some immunity boosting benefits to actually help them feel physically better? These are things that you can be thinking about both today and in the post-COVID-19 era, because we will, in some ways, be forever changed by the last year. and really designed for flexibility and efficiency. So what I mean by that is, as you're designing your applications, remember when you're thinking about your menu that even when people are coming back on premise, off premise is here to stay. There are elements of it that consumers love and continue to want to use. In fact, the off-premise trend had really started even prior to the pandemic. The pandemic just accelerated that trend. So it's not going away. So as you continue to think about your menu, continue all the great innovation that has come out of the pandemic, your new curbside processes or your new delivery processes, whatever it may be, and make sure that your menu will work either here on premise or wherever your consumers want to take it. Here's a great example on the picture from Bar Taco. Bar Taco has signature drinks that they develop, and they want to make it just as easy as people are ordering their tacos for off-premise to enjoy those signature cocktails as well. So they've got their pineapple margaritas and their pomegranate margaritas and all these things that are a lot harder to replicate at home. They have them in single-serve juice pouches. Think of it as an adult juice pouch, but it can be easily poured right into the glass and enjoyed at home with the meal that they ordered for Bar Taco. So there's a great example of something that works here or there equally as well. And whatever you do, obviously, make sure you can design it for limiting complexity and making sure that these products work both here and there is a guaranteed way to help limit that complexity by not needing to have different applications for on-site versus off-site. All right. So with that, we are going to open it up for questions, and we're going to bring Pat back.
Yeah, thanks everyone. And we're opening it up for questions now. And as a reminder, if you have a question, you could put it in the Q&A box on the screen. So we'll start with a question from Kevin. COVID-19 has required restaurants to adapt and cut down on menu offerings. But as we emerge from the pandemic and back to some sense of normalcy, which areas of the menu do you envision returning more quickly than others?
Good question on that one. I guess the areas that I think come back more are going to be, I guess, more geared towards what's that gathering part of the menu where people tend to eat more, not just as a family, but let's say with friends. You've been with your family for so long that you're used to having breakfast and lunch and dinner with them. People want to get back out and maybe see people that they haven't seen in a while. So that dinner time is more that kind of celebratory time. It can be breakfast as well too, but I kind of see a little bit more gearing towards kind of the dinner end of it, and just that gathering. Now, restaurants will still benefit from this, but then also people are accustomed to also entertaining in their houses. So they're going to take some of these restaurant ideas. They're going to say, we've been out and done this and gone to these various restaurants. And I think that a lot of it gears into, hey, what are we used to in the past? What have we done in the past on a weekly? We'd go out to dinner every Saturday night. We'd go out to a brunch every third Sunday of the month. The holidays have passed. We've missed out on different holiday celebrations and get-togethers. I think the dinner part of it, which is more of kind of that celebratory end of it, I think will probably be more of the day part that'll probably pick up the fastest.
Well, thank you, Kevin. And this question is directed at Martin. So immunity-boosting beverages are clearly a growing consumer trend. How should operators look to balance the need for menu simplicity with what might be looked at as premium or more limited offering, potentially still only appealing to a select few?
No, Martin, you're muted. Yeah.
My apologies. Sorry. Thank you, Pat. My own, our own insights gathered here have shown that during the COVID period, we've seen big increases in the likes of, orange juice, vitamin C, as people are looking for their own ways to boost their own immunity. So I think the poll that you did showed that probably half people don't know, but those that do know are seeing an increase in immunity-based beverages. And the way I would look at it is, these are probably enhanced. They're going to provide some added value to the consumer. Orange juice in this market, especially in lodging, is traditionally, free, given away at breakfast. But I think if you're looking at an orange juice that has got added ingredients such as, turmeric or ginger, or as Catherine mentioned, products with spirulina, consumers are used to buying these products in a retail environment. They're paying $3, $4, $5 for a ready-to-drink bottle of healthy juice products. There is no reason why that trend can't translate into the food service environment, because consumers are looking for it. They are wanting something that they can enhance and improve their own immunity. I'm not saying that that's going to make them immune from any future issues, but I think consumers are looking for anything they can do to take control and support and enhance. And these are generally products that can be at the paid for and more added value part of the spectrum, whichever sector you're working in.
Thank you, Martin. I guess this question is more directed towards Kevin, but it could be for either of you. Will we continue to see plant-based product innovation accelerate in the year ahead? And if so, what categories do we see coming next?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, how much have we seen already that's out in the market that has really expanded into, I guess, different categories overall? Everything from just your comfort foods, and then into various other versions of other proteins that we're accustomed to. So go to the burger. I mean, that's all American. I mean, people have been looking to switch over, if necessary, to maybe an option to eat a plant-based burger. We at Nestle have developed that. We also have a ground product of the same protein, the same burger, the Awesome Grounds. I've used those it just recreates that street taco that Catherine had posted before. And it's such a great story to tell, because as much as you have on that taco that's a protein, be it chicken, be it a plant-based ground or chicken, the other ingredients that go on top is, I think, kind of the iconic part of building a taco. It's all the ingredients that are built, that taco platter that was shown there with the pickled onions. So you have something that's got sweet and savory flavor. You have something that's crunchy. Those products on top of a taco like that, with either the chicken or the protein of the beef, is really giving kind of that call out to that taco. And that product that you're eating, although it's not your steak, it's not your grilled chicken, it's not your pork, it's replacing that in the protein, but at the same time, it's the hero ingredient that's on there, and it's still delicious because you've layered a lot of different flavors into it. It's not the beef flavor that you are accustomed to, but again, working with that myself, you're adding in different flavors to kind of build that flavor up for the customer. So you can be confident that, number one, the product's not going to go away. It's going to remain on menus. As we've seen in the past, it already started off with burgers and chicken, and then you saw a veggie burger that was a substitute. It's kind of at the bottom of the menu. I think the call outs now to these stories, and that we do have the product, is out there. And besides, the burgers and the grounds and chicken, and who knows what's going to be next. I mean, they're slowly developing products that are, coming out of the sea. So you're looking at seeing crab that's out there that's done the same way. But I think right now, for what customers are looking at to kind of step in slowly, is what would be considered a burger or chicken to get started on the menu.
Thank you, Kevin. So
Sure.
What shifts are you seeing in day part visits due to some of these new habits?
I mean, one more time on that question.
What shifts are you seeing in day part visits? So are people switching from breakfast to lunch to dinner? Are they going ordering
Well, like
more
I said
from one
before,
of those?
it's some of the you can go to a diner across anywhere and basically get breakfast, lunch, and dinner all day long. Some that are changing that I think they might put on maybe an offset of a breakfast item onto a lunch and dinner. For a long time, chicken and waffles has come a long way. The flavor profile there. So you've still got a waffle, a breakfast item. You're still putting syrup on it of some sort, but what kind of syrup? It might be putting chicken on it. So that kind of crossover from breakfast and lunch is big. One thing that I did see and notice a lot in many webinars and even reading is that the day parts will change per the operator, but the time of those day parts may change. You may see people that will go out for breakfast later and they may go out to dinner earlier. Those are still, I think, people that want to go and entertain and go out, but don't want to be with that big crowd. They might go out for dinner at 4 o'clock. They might go out for breakfast at 10:30. So those times are the days where they choose to eat may change. And operators are just going to change their meal parts at the same time if they choose to just fluctuate between breakfast, lunch, and dinner times, and what meals they'll serve during those times.
And I also think, adding to that, Gen Z, they don't think of day parts. They think, I'm hungry or I'm thirsty now, and I want to eat or drink now. So I think also there's a generational thing where, the day part is now any time during that 24-hour period where I want something, and I want what I want when I want it, and I want it now, and I want it delivered to me. So I think, for many channels, many segments, got to think of it in a different way. Don't think of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And to Chef's part, why if you're a shift worker, why have breakfast? You're probably asleep when people are having breakfast. You want your breakfast at 11 p.m. before you go to your nighttime shift.
Well, I think we've run out of time, and that concludes our webinar. As a reminder, you'll receive an email when the on-demand recording of today's event is available, and you will get the slide deck as well. So thank you, everyone, and happy eating.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Thank you, Patricia. And thank you to everybody for joining us today.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you.